Okay, let's just dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking an explainer on something that is, honestly, profoundly universal, but still feels deeply, deeply personal when it happens to you. We're looking at the anatomy of a missed connection. It's based on this fascinating, almost lyrical narrative called Tell Me How You Feel, and it lays out, in this agonizing slow motion, exactly how a bond between two people just breaks down. We're not talking about some massive, explosive, screaming match kind of fight today. No, we're taking a very grounded look at something much quieter and arguably way more destructive. We're exploring the story of two people standing right next to each other, yet somehow drifting absolute miles apart.
I really want to start right here, because this line brilliantly captures the core symptom of this whole tragedy. You look at me, but all I hear is silence. Just think about the sheer weight of that paradox for a second. The physical presence is 100% there. They are literally looking right at each other. But emotionally, the other person is entirely out of reach. And it's not the comfortable silence of an empty room. It is that heavy, suffocating silence of someone actively choosing to withhold themselves. It's that terrifying realization that the person you know best in the entire world has suddenly just turned into a locked door.
And honestly, that leads us to a pretty stark question. Why does silence become a weapon in love? In our day-to-day lives, we usually think of silence as peaceful, right? A lack of conflict. But in an intimate connection, quietness actually does the most damage. When you withhold your thoughts, your feelings, your explanations, you're not just hitting pause on a conversation. You are actively inflicting pain. You're leaving the other person stranded in a void, essentially forcing them to fill in all the blanks with their own worst fears.
Which brings us to part 1, the wall of silence. The breakdown begins.
Notice the profound dissonance happening in the room here. On one hand, you have physical proximity. They're close enough to touch, but contrast that with the emotional reality. The narrative describes words falling cold like rain against my skin. So the communication hasn't completely stopped, but it's totally lost its warmth. It's this chilling, elemental distance. One person is asking, did I say too much? Where did we begin to break? But the words are just bouncing right off. The physical closeness is completely a lie, masking this freezing emotional reality.
Moving on to part 2, pride and hidden scars. Let's look at the unseen psychological drivers.
The source text talks about the couple turning circles made of pride and anger, and it's wild because that tragic cycle almost always follows a strict pattern. It kicks off with step 1, unspoken hurt. Somebody feels slighted, but they don't say a word. That immediately triggers step 2, pride takes over. Instead of being vulnerable, boom, the walls go up. It's that classic, well, I'm not going to tell you I'm hurt if you can't figure it out yourself mentality, which of course leads to step 3, anger builds. The resentment just festers in the dark. And finally, step 4, deafening silence. It's a total standoff. Neither person can take the first step to break the cycle because at this point, reaching out feels like losing.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the ultimate cost of that pride. Underneath the quiet in your chest, there's a storm you never let me see. It's such a crazy, powerful contrast. From the outside, the partner looks totally calm, unbothered even. But the speaker knows, or at least they strongly suspect, that this calm exterior is completely fake. There's a raging, turbulent emotional storm happening on the inside, but pride has firmly locked the storm doors.
But here's where the narrative shifts and gets incredibly mature. The speaker doesn't just sit there and blame the silent partner. Look at this moment of intense self-reflection. Maybe I was too blind to notice all the shadows hiding deep behind your eyes. They realize that a misconnection is always a two-way street. Was the partner too quiet, or was the speaker just too loud to hear them? Were they completely ignoring the subtle signs of pain, those shadows, until it was way too late? It's this devastating realization of their own complicity in the whole breakdown.
So this leaves us with 3 pretty brutal truths. First, every single heart carries invisible scars. We all bring emotional baggage into our connections. Second, words, especially the wrong words at the wrong time, can cut so deeply into the soul, accidentally activating those hidden scars. But it's the third point that is the absolute ultimate takeaway here. Silence never heals what's breaking down. Literally never. Ignoring the wounds doesn't magically make them go away. It actually guarantees the relationship's collapse. Because at the end of the day, you just cannot treat a wound you refuse to look at.
And that takes us to part 3, the colors in between, the lost potential.
You see the speaker making this really desperate negotiation here. On one side, we have the unwanted stuff, excuses, blame, the perfect stories, and the perfect plans. When a relationship is failing, our instinct is to curate our defense, right? We try to act perfect so we don't get hurt. But the speaker is literally begging to strip all of that away. Contrast that with what is actually needed, just the truth, something real, an honest understanding.
They're basically pleading, I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be here.
And they make that plea using this striking metaphor. Between black and white, there are colors we still haven't found. When pride takes over, we get locked into this rigid binary thinking. I'm right, you're wrong. You hurt me, so I'm the victim. Black and white. But relationships do not survive in black and white. They survive in the nuance, in the messy, complicated, beautiful colors of compromise and vulnerability. The real tragedy of this missed connection is that they're giving up before they've even discovered the full spectrum of what they could be.
Which brings us to the final chapter, Part 4, The Plea for Truth. One last chance.
These are the raw, unfiltered conditions for survival. Don't leave me in the dark tonight. Tear these walls down. Give us one last chance. And honestly, most importantly, be honest, even if the truth hurts. The speaker has realized that the pain of the truth is temporary, but the pain of a lingering, unresolved silence, that is permanent. They're begging their partner not to just disappear without a trace. They are completely willing to take the hit of an ugly, painful truth if it means their connection actually survives.
And this is the heartbreaking core of the entire story. Just let this sink in for a second. Maybe all we ever needed was one honest thing to say. It strips away all the complexity, all the ego, all the chronic overthinking. The realization that this entire tragedy, this massive, gaping chasm that has opened up between two people, might have been prevented by a single, genuine moment of honesty. Just 5 seconds of terrifying vulnerability could have dismantled the entire wall.
But, as the source material concludes, that honest thing is never said. We end the narrative arc exactly where we began it. Breathing in the silence, the plea goes totally unanswered. The storm stays hidden inside, the colors remain unfound. In the story of this misconnection, the silence outlasts the love. The gap between the two people, finally, tragically becomes permanent.
So we've seen how a lack of vulnerability and a surplus of pride can just quietly dismantle a bond. Now, I want to turn it over to you. Ask yourself honestly, what are you leaving unsaid before it's too late? Where is pride building a wall in your own life right now? Remember, silence never heals what's breaking down. Speak your truth before the quiet takes over.